A gente veio aqui no stand da editora Aleph para falar sobre o livro Star Wars. Como Star Wars conquistou o universo, mais uma obra sobre esse universo gigantesco que é o universo de Star Wars. Para falar sobre ele, a gente está aqui com nada mais, nada menos do que o escritor do livro, Chris Taylor. How are you, Chris?
Very well, thank you.
So, Chris, we were that chat you had sooner. Everybody was talking about the book and stuff, and you spoke about how George Lucas used to see. You know, like he was more like the prequels movie. He was closer to that. Can you explain that? How did you discover that? Like you spoke to him, of course, but did you have another source of information, this kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, if you look at it's more important to look at the interviews that George Lucas has given over the years and everything he has said. It's all out there, and he changes what he says a lot, but even that tells you something, right? So you can learn a lot about a man by how he changes his interview answers. But he has said he is a very goofy director. He's much more silly and funny, and he likes animation. That's how he started. His first ever short film when he was a student was in animation. He wanted to go work in animation, so CGI was very much his thing. He hated puppets. He hated that he had to use puppets for the original trilogy. But he always imagined it as this movie that was really just stuffed with silly aliens and monsters and spaceships everywhere. And it didn't look like that. The original Star Wars didn't look like that, only because he did not have the budget. So that's why it looks like a Western to us. Why Tatooine looks sparse. It's just because it was cheap. So the prequels were when he had unlimited money and he could just make it exactly the way he wanted. That's how he would have made it the first time round.
And you speak here about the participation of a princess in the Star Wars, in the Star Wars production. Can you tell our fans how did it work?
Yes, Princess Grace of Monaco, formerly known as Grace Kelly, an American movie star, was on the board of 20th Century Fox right when Star Wars was being developed and when it came out. And there are several essential parts of the history of Star Wars that she was involved in. First of all, there was a vote of the board on whether they were going to go ahead with Star Wars, and she didn't vote either way. She was neutral. Secondly, once it was a hit and they developed the action figures, the famous Star Wars action figures, it took a while for them to make the action figures, and when they came out, the first ones were presented to her and her children. It was actually supposed to be a lottery, but they rigged the lottery so that she would win.
And well, you have a lot of information here about the background of the construction of the movie. So how long did it take for you to take all this information? How long have you been writing this book?
It took about 2 years to write it, including the research. Basically, I started writing it when Lucasfilm was sold to Disney.
And like you speak here about how Star Wars conquered the world. When did it conquer you?
Well, I first experienced Star Wars as a child, as many people do, and I first read about it on the back of a box of cereal that told the whole story of the movie, and then I played with the action figures and I read the comic book, but it was only when it screened on British television in 1982 for the first time. That's what I remember.
And about your experience with the movies, like do you have a preference from the prequels and the older movies? You really prefer the older movies?
I do, yes. I'm old trilogy era. That was when I was really into it as a child. I don't think that the prequel trilogy was aimed at me. I think I was too old to really get it in the way that children are able to. But yeah, my favorite movie used to be Empire Strikes Back, but after writing this book, I so much appreciation for how hard it was to make the first movie, A New Hope, that is now my favorite film, because I see all of the things that he had to do to make it as good as it was.
Yeah, nowadays we have a lot of, expanded universe stories, like a lot of stories that are not in the movie. Do you have a position about that? Like how some authors, they just get the story and create something new with that. Do you believe it's good or bad, or you don't have a position?
Oh, it's great. It's great. The more Star Wars stories that exist, the better. I mean, this is a huge galaxy, and there are so many stories to be told in it. And they all have the attitude of one of the authors I spoke to, John Jackson Miller, talked about how, you know, Star Wars is like a big sandbox with a lot of toys in it, but they're not your toys, you know. So you play in the sandbox for a little bit, and then you put the toys back in the box. You know, you don't change the universe too much, and just let the next person play with it as well. So I love the idea that you have hundreds of authors throughout history and going forward into the future, and they all get to play in that sandbox.
And about the new movie that's coming soon, we had Darth Vader in the first 3 movies, then we had Anakin Skywalker in the second 3 movies, and now there's no Anakin, no Darth Vader. Do you believe in this new investment from Fox?
Well, one thing we know is that Darth Vader's helmet is in the movie. We've seen the charred version of that, and obviously it is influential. Darth Vader is influential on Kylo Ren, the Adam Driver character, so his spirit is still there. And clearly it is still about a battle between the dark side and the light. It's what every Star Wars movie is about, and the Skywalker family story is continuing, even if Anakin is not in it.
Well, about the 7th movie still, on the first movies from this huge universe, we used to have only one black person. Now again we will have a protagonist, and we will have a girl. Like, how do you see this gender stuff in the Star Wars universe?
Oh, it's about time. I mean, it's you know, the problem is more with the previous movies that they didn't have enough women, they didn't have enough people of color. You know, but the universe, it should be as diverse as the planet, at least, right? I mean, we need more blue-skinned people in the movies. You know, we need people of every kind that you can possibly imagine, because there are so many planets, and you know, so I think it's a good thing for the franchise. It's about time. A lot of people complained about the idea of having a black stormtrooper because they thought that all stormtroopers are clones. It's not true. The clones all died out between episodes 3 and 4, so all the stormtroopers are conscripts, you know, or they're forced into being soldiers, which is just a wonderful irony that the clones were all individuals. You know, they developed their individuality and they were very good soldiers, and stormtroopers are individuals who all made themselves look alike, and they are bad soldiers because they can't shoot straight. So I think it's, you know, it's important to have that distinction.
And we have a game which is called Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, which is a story between Star Wars 3 and 4. Has George Lucas ever thought about like a movie between these two? He ever thought about making a movie like that game, or that game just came out of nowhere?
He was involved in the production of that game, and he definitely suggested the idea that Darth Vader have an apprentice. The name of the apprentice, Starkiller, was the original name for Luke Skywalker. He was going to be Luke Starkiller. In fact, even in the script of the movie, of episode 4, he is called Luke Starkiller, and they only changed it when they got to London, and before, you know, the first time Luke Skywalker says his name is on the Death Star. So he doesn't say it on Tatooine, but when they were filming the scenes on Tatooine, he was called Luke Starkiller. So it's very much an homage to that history. So he was involved in that. But yeah, it's an era of time that hasn't been very well represented in the Star Wars franchise. But now you have Rebels, of course, set between episode 3 and 4. So they're really working on that period of time.
In Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, we had like some new versions with the new Anakin Skywalker appearing during the end of the movie, and they added some scenes.
Yes.
How do you see this kind of option by the director?
I mean, I have to agree with George Lucas that it is the director's right to change his own work. we know what the original version was like. Actually, there were two different versions because you had the special edition that just had the celebrations at the end around the galaxy, and then that still had the previous actor in that role, Sebastian Shaw, and but all these versions still exist, and fans on the internet have created their own versions that are sort of a polished version of the original, and that's as it should be. So Lucas has his right to make his movie his way, change it however he wants, and the fans have the right to change it however they want and bring it back to the original. So everyone's happy.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you for your time, really. It was a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you. May the force be with you.
May the force be with you too. A gente volta com mais entrevistas daqui a pouco na Comic Con. Fica ligado no Pit Stop.